what's going on with Florida State and the ACC. Interesting developments when we were without internet yesterday. Tuesday in Tallahassee, the ACC and Florida State went head-to-head in front of Judge Cooper. And I think most people would agree, as the ACC won in North Carolina, Florida State, I guess, won. I don't know that anything was really decided in this case, other than Judge Cooper denied the stay application by the ACC to delay this court action by Florida State. Other than that, not much was divided. I don't know that there was a winner or a loser in this case, but certainly it was a good day if you were Florida State because you did not take a loss. The judge did not stay this case. He did not delay it to give precedent to the case in North Carolina. I think there is no doubt that Judge Cooper was leaning towards Florida State. He as much as says so, and talked about how the ACC was venue shopping when it was filing its case before Florida State could do so in Florida. They filed in North Carolina, which was his main reason, it appears, for not granting the stay that the ACC was asking for. But I don't know that there was a clear, unequivocal winner in this situation. The good news, if you are Florida State, you did not lose this hearing, because that certainly would have made your road to exiting the ACC through court a much steeper, more difficult terrain to navigate. But one thing is very clear, and it's what we've talked about in this Florida State situation versus the ACC for months and months now. Judge Cooper agreed with us and everybody else who has asked the question, if this grant of rights is so bad, why did you sign it? That is the question. That is, in my opinion, the lingering issue for Florida State hanging over their head coming out of court on Tuesday. Judge Cooper said he was troubled by the fact that Florida State put pen to paper on that ACC grant of rights when Florida State was arguing that its board of trustees was never given an opportunity to review the situation. Why then did Florida State sign the grant of rights, Jake? I think that is absolutely the biggest obstacle for Florida State here.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there's just no getting away from it. There's no, it is the ultimate ace in the hole for anybody arguing against Florida State. And I think it comes down to basic contract law, man. Like, obviously, this is a legitimate contract. It has everything you need for a legitimate contract. And now we're in a position where you've signed this thing not once, but twice. And it just puts you in a tough position, because you can't say on one hand, hey, like, this grant of rights is unfair, but then on the other hand, get away from the fact you signed it twice. That's just, you're just not getting out from under that. And the problem is that any judge has an obligation to obviously follow the law and rule on cases based on what the law says. The law says that unless you were had a gun to your head, or were intoxicated, or unable to properly, like, if you were just impaired in any type of way, or forced or coerced to sign this contract, the contract's going to stand up on its merits alone. And that's what I think is the problem for Florida State. They've been trying to get out of this thing for years now. They've been trying to find the escape hatch, and they haven't found one. Yeah. So now they've gone to court action, and the problem is I still don't understand what the goal is, because I think everybody agrees you're not getting out from under this grant of rights through the courts.
100%.
So I don't know, is Florida State simply saying, hey, like, we're just going to try and make as much noise as possible, and then when the court rules against us, then we'll find our next avenue to be a pain in the ass in the ACC? I mean, is that the strategy? Because that's certainly what it kind of seems like, but I don't know what else it could be.
Well, and I think what's clear coming out of this case in Tallahassee the other day on Tuesday was that Florida State's going to argue that they are being unjustly held back by this grant of rights. They talked about, I believe the language they used was being held hostage by this grant of rights. The ACC's argument was, well, hey, you can get out of this for, $150 million anytime you want. But Florida State then said, yeah, but that doesn't get us our TV rights back, and it will cost $572 million. $500 million to get out of this grant of rights. And this is where that argument comes in, because the attorney for Florida State said, quote, the ACC wants to take the next 12 years of every home game Florida State plays. And you figured, okay, well, you have a very pro Florida State judge here in Judge Cooper. You would think that that would resonate with the judge, but this is where that question of what did you do? Why did you sign this? And Cooper said that he sided more with Florida State. He made that very clear when it came to the issues of the grant of rights, but said, I side with Florida State, but I cannot understand, and I am troubled by putting your signature on that piece of paper. And I don't know how Florida State gets away from that, because I also think there was another really interesting moment when the ACC attorney argued, you've been profiting from this grant of rights for 13 years. And the judge said, well, yeah, that would be true. And that would be a relevant argument if you were asking for damages, if you were asking for repayment, which the ACC is not. The ACC is simply saying, we want this grant of rights upheld. So it's a really interesting back and forth. And I think it's really interesting that you're just now making this argument in front of a judge on something that you signed 10 years ago.
Well, and I think the terrifying part is, like, you've still got, 11 years on this grant of rights left. Like obviously for Florida State, in their, when you have their opinion, that's a long time, man. I mean, when you're of the opinion that you're suffering and you're being held hostage, 11 years feels like a long time given all the change we're seeing in the sport. But again, it's hard for me to feel sorry for Florida State because of the decision that they made. And,
yes.
and the unfortunate part is the excuse of, well, everybody signed it. It was the accepted amount at the time, but the term is too long. And it's like, well, why didn't you make that case before? Did you not have the foresight to see that, yeah, TV partnerships and the game is going to continue to grow? Like, that was never some trade secret. It's very obvious that those valuations are going to continue to grow. So it just, that's why I say, when you really get down to the core of this issue, the question becomes, what is Florida State trying to do? Because it seems very clear they're not getting out of the grant of rights through the court, even when Judge Cooper is like, hey, yeah, I agree with you that the grant of rights is heavy-handed and it puts you in a bad spot, no question about it. But I also have to look at the law and say, hey, you signed it not once but twice, man.
And I think it's also very telling that the judge no commented, essentially, did not speak to the argument Florida State was making, that they are no longer in the decision-making process when it comes to ACC policy. And I think that's a very interesting no comment, if you will, from Judge Cooper, who was happy to comment and say he was favoring Florida State's position on many things. But how can you legitimately argue that the ACC should allow Florida State to be part of future policymaking when they are so passionately and publicly trying to get out? And I understand why Florida State made that argument in front of the judge, but I think it's really telling that the judge did not have much of a feeling on that.
That's what I'm saying. It's almost like the judge, because he's a pro Florida State judge, empathizes with Florida State and understands how they feel and why they feel the way they feel. But he's being held accountable by the law. He can't, as a judge, just overlook the fact that you signed the document and you made a conscious decision. You didn't have a gun to your head. You weren't impaired. There were no issues when you signed it. You made the decision to do this, and now you want out. And that's not how the world works. Because again, if let's say the judge were to go, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go against the grain and say that they should be allowed out. Do you understand that basically undercuts contract law for every contract law case there's ever been? I mean, if you start to think about it, you're like, yeah, if he does it here, where else could we have done it? You can't set that precedent.
And I know this inflames Florida State fans every time I say this, but this is no different than buying a house. It's no different than buying a car. just because you have buyer's remorse and you feel like you're not making the money that you deserve or that your competitors are making, that doesn't give you the right to tear this contract up. And it was very clear when you signed this document that it was going to cost you $572 million to get out. And it's the argument they continue to make in court that that's arduous. Well, sorry, man, buyer's remorse does not work here. It's a contract.
Yeah.
And the judge, and I will continue to pat myself on the back. I'll dislocate my shoulder if needed. You were not under duress when you signed this contract.
Facts.
You did not have a gun to your head.
No.
You were not under the influence. You signed this contract and for 10 years said nothing about it.
Well, and I think to that end, there was an article that came out recently that talked about the fact that, you know, Bobby Bowden, like 10 years ago or whatever, did an interview where he talked about how, hey, like, do you remember the original reason why Florida State went to the ACC versus the SEC? Because they had a choice. If you go back and you look, they had a choice from when they were leaving Independence, what conference they were going to join.
Yes.
And the choice was the SEC or the ACC. Bobby Bowden himself said, hey, we went to the ACC because we knew that it was the easier path to go out and win a national championship. We knew that the ACC was not as competitive as a conference as the SEC, even at that time. So what's so incredible to me is that your very position in this conference is based on the fact that you wanted a free pass to a national championship, and now it's not working out for you.
Yeah, I think, and on the screen is what you're referencing here, where essentially Bobby Bowden told Paul Feinbaum in 2015 that he felt, quote, it was too difficult to win through the SEC to win a national championship. He also told 247 Sports in 2019 that he thought FSU would choose the SEC, but, quote, the administration, the president, and others wanted the ACC, which really was better for us. It would have been hard wading through the SEC. So, to your point, Jake, yeah, there's no question that Bobby Bowden was unequivocal in that they took the easy route. They chose the ACC because it was the easier path to a national championship.
So you chose the easier path. You got what you wanted. Then you wanted to continue that easy path, right? You were like, okay, cool. We're established. Let's continue it for quite some time. And now the landscape has changed in a way that you didn't foresee coming. You're pissed about it. You want out of the contract. And this judge, I'm telling you, does not have a way to be like, yeah, dude, you signed this contract twice, but we're going to ignore that fact and just let you do what you want. That's not how the law works.
No,
dude. That's not possible.
And Florida State fans can get upset. Get upset with your administration. It's, again, not to say the same thing over and over. They're the ones that made these decisions.
Like, it's incredible to me in today's world that we want to have it both ways. Like, we don't care if the law says it's wrong, or even if you take the law out of it and you just go to the right thing to do. We don't give a damn about that. We just want the easy way. We want it to be as easy for as long as possible. And then if easy changes in a way that negatively impacts us, then we want out of the agreement. And that's what's hard for me. It's like this Florida State situation is different from the Michigan situation in the sense that the Michigan situation is just, hey, who did what illegal activity took place, and what's the discipline going to be? Right? That's what the Michigan situation was. That wasn't a contract law situation. This is a contract law situation. Hey, two parties agreed to something, and now one of those parties wants out. And by the way, I don't hear enough people talking about the fact that if the judge were to rule in Florida State's favor at the end of the day, you're not only ruling in their favor, you're ruling to tear down the ACC, which I think is another responsibility this judge has.
Well, and I think he is aware of that. I think he is painfully aware of that. And to put a bow around this, it's Florida State.
Yeah.
Like, this is a brand. This is a football powerhouse. And you're telling me that the best that a heritage brand like Florida State can do is go into court and argue we don't like it anymore, so we want out. And I'm fascinated that this is the position that a program, the magnitude of a program with these levels of success during the Bobby Bowden's era,
The heritage.
the history, the tradition,
Yeah.
didn't think this through. Didn't think, hey, $572 million is a lot of money. Did it never occur to you to do that calculation? Because that's what it feels like to me. And whether it's Arizona and their $240 million abacus mistake, like the Pac-12 melting down with some of the foremost academic and educational minds at the helm of that conference, and it completely melted down under incompetence. Are you telling me that that's where Florida State is? Because that's what this feels like. This case, to answer the question on the screen, this case will never be tried in front of a judge or a jury. This is 100%, and I think the judge said this. This is 100% about leverage in negotiations.
This case is empty.
It is. This will wind up in the hands of a mediator. This will wind up with a negotiated settlement. And I am curious, what happens to Clemson's case? What happens to Clemson's case? Because I think it's going to be very difficult for Clemson, and I feel like Clemson's just along for the ride in this.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how that situation works out. It's going to be interesting to see when we get to a negotiation, like all this ridiculousness about how, they're going independent. Florida State's going independent this coming season. They're not going independent. They're not. You're not getting out of the ACC to go independent.
Well, and I think the issue is that this whole situation puts the ACC in a spot where they're not incentivized to help you. And I keep saying this, but like, you're not doing yourself any favors if you're Florida State to get what you want by trying to bulldog the ACC in a courtroom, right? Or by trying to use the courtroom for leverage, because the concept of leverage here doesn't really exist. What leverage does Florida State really have, right? In order to have leverage, you got to be able to say, hey, dude, if you don't do A, B is going to happen. Well, sorry, Florida State, you don't really have a B or an A. That's the issue. And so when I think about a mediator situation and these two sitting down at a table and figuring it out, for the ACC, there is no best case scenario when it comes to Florida State, because if they get out in any form or fashion, right? Let's say you got out and you paid a fee and Florida State retains its TV rights. Do you know what that does to the ACC? Do you understand that that puts the ACC at incredible risk? Because now we have precedent to get out of the grant of rights. Now it's like, okay, well, the Florida State did this to get out of the grant of rights.
Yeah.
We're UNC. You really telling me that we got to pay and do as much as they did?
I think if Florida State winds up, I mean, if we are talking about moving other members, the longer this goes on without resolution, the better it is for Florida State. Because the longer this goes on, the Notre Dame's, it really, what are we even talking about? North Carolina, because I think, again, this conference lives and dies on Tobacco Road. The longer this goes on, North Carolina State, other influential members, which I don't think Clemson is one of, the Dukes of the world, then the Notre Dames, that's when they're going to start getting antsy. And that's the problem for Florida State with this ruling, if you will. It's awesome that the judge said, if you're Florida State, it's awesome the judge didn't delay this movement by Florida State. Great. I'm all about that. That's a win. The problem is he sided with the ACC on the fact that Florida State signed this contract. Get to negotiating. Get to a settlement. Move the ball down the road. That's, if you are Florida State, you only have two options. You don't want this to go to court. In my opinion, in other people's opinions I've asked about this, they can't go to court and win a contract argument. They just can't. There's
No.
no way that they're going to be able to win a contract argument. And all this is leverage at the mediators table. That's all this is. So get about your business. If you are really serious about bringing an end game to whether it's just your situation in Tallahassee or the ACC in general, get to it. Because the longer this goes on, the worse it is for the ACC, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I think if this lingers through the summer, at some point, North Carolina is going to have to move. At some point. Because they're already trying to churn. They're chumming the waters, if you will, calling, talking, trying to form alliances in this conference. And I have to believe now that they already have a plan. I think 99% of this is already been talked about and mapped out. It's simply a matter of what's going to trigger people to move and in what direction will they move.
Yeah.
But it's plain and simple. It is just as, I don't think this is complicated. I think in so many cases in this life, we try to make shit complicated. This is really simple.
Well, and the contract is the purest form of that, right? Like, it's not complicated. The contract says what it says. It's got everyone's signature on it. There was an agreement that took place. Like, don't confuse this. Florida State agreed. They said, yes, we agree to this. Not once, but twice. You're not getting away from that. And for me, if I was on the ACC side of things, again, I don't even feel like this court action gives Florida State a ton of leverage at a mediator table. Because again, if you're sitting at the table and these two are going back and forth, the ACC is just going to continue to say, okay, cool, you want this? If we don't give it to you, what are you going to do about it? Oh, that's right. Absolutely nothing. You're going to sit here and you're going to continue to make yourself look bad for your next home. That's what I'm saying. Like,
there's just no win here.
Yeah, there's no win for anybody.
There's no win
to
here.
which I say, if you're Florida State, why are you not going to ESPN? Why are you not going to the TV partners and saying, hey, man, this is our situation. This is what we want to do. What would be the initial opportunities? What would be the initial angles of possibilities?
I think that is a very difficult precedent to set. I think you are asking for it. It just is. It is. Yeah, it's rough. I think that's very rough. And when you, again, I just go back to contract law because I think that's what this is. And I think when you look at what Florida State agreed to, a long-term grant of rights that brought them stability that they have profited from. And I think that's why it's not accidental. What is the ACC's position? You sign this contract, you've profited from it, and now you want out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the judge questioned them on the profit angle of it, but he also very much leaned in favor of the ACC when he said, my biggest question is why did you sign this deal? The judge said, I'm having trouble getting past the fact that Florida State signed this not once, but twice.
Yes.
Signed this deal. That's very difficult to get away from, man. And that's why I think you got to get to negotiating.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that you extended the deal is, I mean, I don't know how you're going to spin that. I mean, I don't know how you get around it.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. It'll be interesting to see where we go from here. Let's get your thoughts on it. As always, presented by Prize Picks, prizepicks.com.
Okay, we have to do the Masters, right? I mean, on
you
Prize
have
Picks,
to. You have to.
Let's see what Prize Picks rolled out for Tiger's number today. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in Tiger Woods winning the Masters. Can he make the cut? Yes. He has talked about, and everybody who has watched Tiger this week at the Masters has talked about his swing now accommodates that frozen in place heel and ankle that he has. And he is now hitting the ball as far as he was before the car accident. So that's a lot of really good news, right? But I'm not somebody that can get on board with that. I am truly not.
Does he survive physically? Because that's the other thing.
That's the biggest. Well, he's also said that he has stopped using a golf cart in practice rounds because he is trying to condition. For those of you who don't know, Tiger Woods was in a major car accident. His right ankle is fused. It does not bend. It does not move. It is locked in place for the rest of his life or as long as he has that ankle. And it creates a lot of problems. One of the problems it creates is it creates significant knee and calf pain. As he walks more, he has significant pain, and it impacts his ability, or previously, it has impacted his ability to play 72 holes, which is what you're doing, right? You're playing 4 rounds of 18 holes. He's fine on Thursday and Friday. It's at the end of Saturday that he is really unable to continue forward. He says that he has changed his fitness regimen, and he is a voracious workout guy.
Yeah.
He is somebody that trains multiple times a day.
Do you even lift?
And he does. He has trained hard to be able to walk for 72 holes of golf. He has stopped using a cart when he's preparing for a tournament now, because what he had been doing is playing golf, not competitive golf, but playing practice rounds using a golf cart. Now he has stopped doing that, and it's forcing him to walk more.
Well, and I think people are like, oh, well, Monty, it's just golf. You're just walking. What's the big deal?
Well, when you have a frozen ankle, a fused ankle, which is what Tiger has, the Achilles, the muscles in the bottom of his foot. One of the issues he had in the Bahamas was the musculature in his foot was very painful. The tissue on the bottom of his foot just, I think he likened it to walking on glass. Every step was piercingly painful. I don't know how you fix that, right?
Well, it just sounds like a situation for Tiger where, again, this is a guy who's 48 years old now, so obviously he's not incapable. I mean, his body can still do things, but I think that at that age, when you're playing professional golf and you've played the amount of golf he's played, you have to give your body the chance to ramp up, and you have to say, hey, okay, if I'm going to be able to walk 72 holes, I got to do that in practice. And probably what he should be doing, and I don't know, maybe he is, I have no idea, but you should be training for like 5 days in a row, right? Hey, like, let's walk 18 holes and build up to that and teach my body how to get comfortable walking that far.
How to deal with
this. Because, again, when his body is there for him, he's going to be competitive. I'm with you. I don't think that this is a guy that's going to win the Masters this year. Best case scenario for me is a top 10 finish. That's best case, all world, everything's perfect scenario for Tiger. Would be a top 10 finish. He looks good. Like, maybe the putter comes alive during the weekend and he picks up some strokes. Like, that would be best case scenario. But I think this Masters needs Tiger not to flame out on Friday.
100%.
Like, this Masters needs Tiger to go through it, because what I think
he needs to play the weekend,
dude. What I think is going to happen, not to go off on a whole thing about the Masters here, but I do think Scotty wins this Masters, and I do think that the tournament itself, to keep the heat, needs Tiger at least in contention
within 10 shots of the lead.
Like, you need to be at least reasonably competitive.
All right, here's what I have on Prize Picks, prizepicks.com. Make sure you download the app. Use the promo code Monty, MONTY Monty, to get 100% deposit matching, which means you put in $50, they'll give you $50 more, up to $100. So you can put in $100, they'll give you $100 more. It's one of the best deals in fantasy sports. Hook it up, prizepicks.com. So the way that Prize Picks works, for instance, Tiger Woods today on strokes is 74.5. You simply have to say he'll have more than 74.5 strokes or less than. I'm less than 74.5 strokes for Tiger today. I am less than 72 strokes for Rory McIlroy today. And I am less than 73 strokes for Justin Thomas today.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I tell you every day, my formula on Prize Picks is really simple. 3 selections. You take 3 selections, NBA, Major League Baseball, golf. You can mix and match. You can play all golf. I'll have all golf today, and then I'll have a baseball, basketball one as well. I always play flex, so I need 3 guys I'm going to flex play it, which means if I get 2 of 3, I win my money. If I get 3 correct, I win 2.5 times my money. So I am going to put up a $25. I'll put up a $25 bet to win $56.25.
And when you're doing golf, I would highly encourage you just to do a quick Google search for the course that they're playing that week and understand what par for a round is. So at Augusta National, par is 72. So when you're looking at Prize Picks for golf and it says 74.5 strokes, what is Prize Picks saying there? They're saying, do you believe Tiger Woods is going to be 2 over or 3 over when he finishes his day? So I'm taking Tiger Woods to be 2 over, less than 74.5 strokes, right? Whereas with Scotty, right, his number is 71. So Augustus or Prize Picks is saying, hey, we think this guy is going to be 1 under or better. And I'm saying I think he's going to be 2 or 3 under, even with the conditions today. So with golf, you got to look at that stuff and understand what the course par for the course would be.
100%.